My name's Seb. I was in the military. I came out roughly about 4 or 5 years ago, and I work in construction. So, how I became a Christian, my parents were not Christian. They were sort of like free-loving hippies. But my nan was a Christian, and I used to go to church with my nan before I joined the army. So we're talking, I was about sort of 19, 20. The reason I started going with her is because I was having a bit of a bad time. My parents weren't together. My mum lived in a different, like in completely different area. And I was on a lot of drugs, and I was drinking and partying a lot. So going to church with my nan, it was a bit of comfort. And the reason which drew me to it and why I kept going is because I felt the love from the people. And one thing that I can remember is if somebody was away or somebody was sick, everybody would be praying for them. It was a shock to me that people actually cared about other people. So that's something I can remember, but I wouldn't say that I was a Christian then. I didn't read the Bible. I didn't pray. I just went with my nan because it was nice and I like to spend time with my nan. And then I joined the military. And like I said, I was into a lot of drugs and alcohol prior to the military. So I think God put me there at that time to get me off the streets and get me stop doing the stuff I was doing and hanging around with the people that I was hanging around with, because my life was literally going nowhere. I was literally just working to just party, basically. I remember we used to go to church in the army on a Sunday when we were in training, and they used to sing this song, "One more step along the world I go. One more step along the world I go." Fast forward a few years, I came out of the military. I would cope with my problems by working hard Monday to Friday, and then drinking heavily on a Friday night, and then being rough all weekend. And then I just got to the point where that was, too much, and my life started falling apart a little bit. And yeah, I've always suffered with depression. That's due to my ADHD. So I've always struggled with sort of mental health, and I was never any good at school and stuff, and I didn't really have any sort of ambitions or goals. But yeah, my life was sort of falling apart, and I remember talking to my wife, and there was times where I didn't actually want to be here anymore, and there was no rhyme or reason behind it. My obviously the drinking and stuff didn't help, but it was a solution to the problem, albeit a bad solution. Um, and I remember that one day I just felt that I had to go to church. And it was around Easter time a couple of years ago. One Sunday, I took my little girl and we went to the Priory Church in the town where I live. And that's like the big old fashioned Church of England, massive, all fancy buildings. And my girl was about one at the time. And she was a bit of a nightmare. She was running up and down the aisles and banging all the toys, and it was echoing all through the thing. But I just felt that I needed to go, and it was Easter, and it was a very traditional church, so they'd be wearing all sort of like fancy robes and doing a lot of stuff which I didn't really understand. But something pulled me into that church that day. Then the, what happened after that is I walked out of the church, and then I walked across the common, and then there's another church. And it was during the summertime, so they had the whole congregation sat outside of the church, and I saw all these bright colours, and I saw all these kids running around, and I saw all this music, and I thought, that's definitely a bit of me. Now, it's just something. I didn't go into church that day, but that sort of planted a seed with me, and I said, I want to go there. And a few weeks after, I felt that I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to pluck up the courage to go in the church. And I walked into the church, and then everybody was really friendly, and the music started playing, and I started welling up. I now know that to be the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit just come over me, and I was crying. I stood up on the balcony of this church. I'd actually brought my little boy with me this time, and I thought, that's probably because of I miss my nan and stuff, and it reminds me of her. But then, I started to feel a little bit better. My life has started piecing together, but every time I'd go in, I'd still have that same feeling. Every time the worship music started, that was the way the Holy Spirit convicted me and said, this is, you know, this is your path now. This is where you need to be.